What's up with y'all? Swoop and Score bringing y'all all that Eagles information and more. All right, so the draft is over. The 2021 NFL draft is officially over. There were some ups, there were some downs. There were some that there was some we might have gotten on some hidden gems. You might have reached, but we getting ready to discuss that. So that being said, round one gets a complete A. This is going to be me giving you guys my complete grading of the entire draft. I'll break it down round by round, and then I'll put together a cumulative score for the entire culmination of the Philadelphia Eagles draft. So round one, as I discussed in the previous video, gets an A plus. I mean, that was a necessity. You move back and then you move up. You essentially gain another first round draft pick come next year. And on the condition that Carson Wentz plays well, could potentially land you 3 first round draft picks come next year. So savvy. So that gets an A plus. All right. That brings us to round two. Round two, where I know everybody, including myself, said this round is an important round because this will determine how the rest of this draft is going to shape up. And needless to say, round two was an absolute reach. Landon Dickerson was a reach. And I say that because, well, yes, maybe a Swiss Army knife on the offensive line, being able to play from tackle, guard to center on, all sides of it, that's great. But if you cannot stay healthy, and these were no minor injuries like a strain, maybe some cramping in the calf or something like that. Now there was nothing like that. He tore both his ACLs. Had a high ankle sprain. I think an ankle sprain that deactivated him for the rest of the season. So he only played one full season at Alabama. One full season at Alabama. And that to me is troubling because, correct me if I'm wrong, how many times do the Eagles have to draft offensive linemen? It's like every year they draft offensive linemen. Hit or miss. You drafted Nate Herbig, Jack Driscoll, and I believe Prince, I forget his last name. I think it's Wanago. A big fella from Auburn. Then the year before, you drafted Andre Dillard. You drafted Andre Dillard the year before for him to be the successor to Jason Peters. But then Jordan Mailata comes along and completely, null and void, renders that null and void. Now, that I get, but you draft all these linemen and you still surrender in sacks. So perhaps it's not the fact that the individual you got. Maybe it's the way that it's being coached, the way that they're being coached up. Maybe it's the scheme, something to that degree, because you cannot constantly have all these different players come in and play on this offensive line and end up with horrible results as far as lack of protection for the quarterback. And then so that to me, that pick was a reach. And I can see if you were going, if that's the case, if you wanted to do that so bad, if you wanted to get, go line so bad, you could have got Christian Barmore. But New England swooped in and got him, so, it is what it is. I wasn't a fan of that pick. I wasn't. I felt like that was a complete reach. That was an absolute reach. That was an absolute reach. And I don't know why they did it. They want him to be the successor to Jason Kelce, or a rotational player. Howie Roseman, I seen him come out and then try to justify it, come out with a statement saying that, games are won and lost and on the line. And listen, I played ball when I was coming up. When I was younger, I played on the offensive line. I played right tackle, right guard. I've even played center. So I know games are won and lost in the trenches. I played on the defensive line too when I was smaller. But with that being said, while games are won and lost in the trenches, I get that. I wholeheartedly support that. But the fact is, one area of concern that constantly gets neglected, and I know we in Philadelphia all know this, the linebacker position is literally the most disrespected and overlooked position in our franchise. In the franchise, that position more than anyone else. So, and then there's wide receiver. And I only say that because in the past, the Eagles have drafted the likes of Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin. But name me another standout linebacker the Eagles have had. You know, the last standout linebacker the Eagles probably had was Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks wasn't a slouch, but if we're talking about premier linebacker, like cornerstone linebacker, I'd have to say Jeremiah Trotter was probably the last one. You had Dhani Jones. Dhani Jones wasn't bad, but Dhani Jones wasn't a product of Philadelphia. He didn't originally begin in Philadelphia. You know, the same with DeMeco Ryans. And DeMeco Ryans was great. But like I said, Jeremiah Trotter is that guy. So round two, to be fair and understanding it, I give round two a D. And the only reason I don't give it an F is because he can play multiple positions. And I give it a D, not because of him in the injury history. It's not necessarily him. I don't doubt his skill set, but but having those injuries makes having those specific types of injuries on the offensive line a vital piece of a team's success. That's something to be wary about. So yeah, that gets a D. Round two gets a D. Round two gets a D because of the reach. Then you go to round three, Milton Williams. Now, word is, brother bench pressed about 500 pounds. Now, that's nice. That's nice. You know, I will indeed. I'm not gonna sit there and lie to y'all, make it seem like I checked out your tape. I didn't even know who he was. So I'll be sure, and this is coming from someone who watched college ball, but I can't watch every single game. But with that being said, he's one of those guys that I looked at and said to myself, you know what? If you line him up, if he really has that edge to him, that attitude, that grit on that defensive line, and with the highlights that they show, he seemed like it. He seems like a guy that has that. You line him up next to Fletcher Cox, you might have yourself a recipe for disaster. Because if you run a 4-3, and this is me, if I'm running a 4-3 defense, guess what I'm doing? I got Fletcher Cox, I got Milton Williams, I got Brandon Graham, and on the opposite side, that right end position, I got Josh Sweat. No disrespect to Derek Barnett, but Josh Sweat is an animal. I definitely like his game. I enjoy his game, and I think that he brings a much needed attitude. When you got people on the defensive line, you want them to have an attitude to them. You want them to be nasty. You want guys that eat with their hands. You want guys that do that. You want guys that's going to come through. You want absolute warriors on that defensive line. Guys that are willing to get in the trenches and make it happen. To wreak havoc in the opposing team's backfield. So yes, and we all know in Philadelphia, if it's one position that is value, it's that defensive line. When you got guys like, Jerome Brown, Reggie White, who was the other? Javon Curse, Corey Simon, even before when Fletcher Cox got drafted, and you had the likes of Cullen Jenkins, Broderick Bunkley, you had Vinny Curry, Cedric Thornton, those guys. Yeah, that defensive line was pretty tough. That was a tough defensive line. So I'm not against any of that. I'm not against any of that at all. For that round in particular, round three, I give that a B. I give that a B because my other issue with that was that while it was not a reach, I felt like the linebacker position once again was disrespected. Once again, it was overlooked. I feel like they do a lot of off-season moves so that way they can avoid having to draft a linebacker. And I'm like, we need a home. The Eagles need a homegrown linebacker. You need a homegrown linebacker, and I don't understand why. For the love of for the love of Christ, why are they so against? Why are you so against the linebacker position? What is that? Like, what is that? You know, last year in the draft, when the Eagles took Jalen Rager, which I felt was a reach, another reach, especially when you got a guy like Justin Jefferson on the board, when you should have took him, which I feel like, you take the best available talent. I felt like, not some disrespect, but it's just like, once again, if you weren't going to take a wide receiver, I felt the need to take a linebacker. I would not have been angry if the Eagles were taking somebody like Kenneth Murray. If you took Kenneth Murray first round, I'd have been happy. I don't think that would have been a fail. But yeah, round 3 this year gets a B, once again, because of the disrespect to the linebacking position. And just to talk about round 2 once more, JOK was still on the board, JOK was still on the board. So, if you weren't going to take him, fine. There's other linebackers out there you could have taken. With that being said, we go to round 4. Zach McPherson. Now, the guy looks like he has some length, played out of Texas Tech. And one thing you should know about the Big 12, the Big 12 is a conference where, daughter in the background, you know how that is being a parent. But, yeah, the Big 12 is a division where they air the ball out a lot. So, obviously, the ball is getting tossed around time and time again. So, I'm not too upset with that. I'm not too upset with that one. He looked like he has some length. And from what I was able to deduce from his highlights, he's a patient guy. He really is a patient guy. And, he doesn't... And that can be a pro and a con. Because you want guys to attack the ball. You don't want guys... He doesn't wait for the ball to come to him. So much so as, he makes his mark when, he times it just right, if that makes any sense. So from what I was able to see from that, he seemed like he has, exceptional, incredible length. So the guy seems like he can go after it. The guy really, seems like he can go after it. Like I said, I don't know too much about him because I didn't really watch, Texas Tech like that. So, if in the event that, more comes out, I'll definitely be doing, reviews on that as well too. So for round 4, I give round 4 a bit of a B minus, mostly because, yes, an area of need and concern got addressed, but the problem was, once again, it goes back to round 2. Because if you was going to take a corner, you should have taken Asante Samuel Jr. That's just my sentiments about it. Okay, you weren't going to take a linebacker. All right, fine, whatever. It's still linebackers available. But you should have gotten Asante Samuel Jr. So this one gets a B minus. So round 4 is a B minus. Round 3 is a solid B. And round 2 is a D. Round 2 is a D. Now, here we go to round 5. Kenneth Gainwell. And from what I saw, from what I was able to see from him, Kenneth Gainwell seems to be, hey, from a freshman, he like one of the dudes who's willing to step on the field and just get it done. They compared him to Devontae Freeman. They compared him to him where Devontae Freeman was such a great back. The only knock on Devontae Freeman is that he couldn't block. Kenneth Gainwell seems to be a guy who can actually block. So you have a running back who many would view as undersized. This is a dude that can actually block as well. So that to me is a plus. So, and then you got a 3-headed backfield. You have a 3 monster in the backfield. So, you got your ground and pound style runner with, you have your ground and pound style runner with the likes of Jordan Howard. Then you have your, another guy who actually can be a 3-down back in Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders can be a 3-down back. I just feel like, he didn't necessarily get the opportunity to prove that last season because for whatever reason, the Eagles were so against running the ball. So, it is what it is. Now you got Kenneth Gainwell, a guy who seems to be another Swiss Army knife, who seems to be a pretty versatile back, where, Miles Sanders is probably, and I'm not gonna say, I would say like an upgrade almost, if that makes any sense. But like, Amar Sanders seems to be pretty great at that. Then you got the likes of, so you have all three of these guys in the backfield, and you have yourself a recipe for a pretty strong running game. You got your recipe for a pretty strong running game. So this one, I give this round, I give this a B minus as well. I give this one a B minus. And then we go on to round 6. Now, all right. So they end up taking Marlon. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his last name because I'm gonna butcher it. But the defensive tackle from USC. And and the thing with that is unless of course they intend to run like a 5-2 defense or rotational, which I'm pretty sure that's probably what this is. It's more about rotating certain guys in and out. I'm not against it, but once again, the linebacker position is disrespected. It is disrespected once more. So for this one in particular, unless you intend to move on from the likes of Javon Hargrave, unless you intend to do that, then I'm under the impression, that's could potentially be something, but we'll see how this all works out. But for that, that's that with that one. Then you go on and then you draft a defensive end. Now, I think his name is Teron Jackson from Coastal Carolina University. An edge rusher, and I'm not against the fact that he's an edge rusher. I mean, you still got Brandon Graham, but who knows how long Brandon Graham has got. I guess they got it, to kind of like, okay, we have this new guy and you can learn from Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham is finally a Pro Bowl after, so many years. Let's not talk about that in the NFL, and he's finally getting his due after paying him for so long. Let's not talk about that. But with that being said, yeah, I feel like that was why they ended up getting him. So, okay. And then you got, so you end up getting Jacoby Stevens from LSU. And he's a safety. He's a safety who can come down and actually play linebacker as well too. That was a steal. And I felt like that was a gem. That was a gem of a pick. Because you essentially have a linebacker, and it's not like, but you have a linebacker who you can also put as safety. And I know some people are like, well, what does that say for Kayvon Wallace? It doesn't say anything. Why can't the two of them play back? Why can't the two of them? Who's to say that Anthony Harris is going to be here in the long haul? Rodney McLeod might not be in the long haul. So you would essentially have two safeties, Jacoby Stevens, and you'd have Kayvon Wallace. I'm not against that. I think that could potentially end up being a very great secondary. Now we just gotta get some cornerbacks to help that secondary out, but let's not talk about that. So for round six, I have a variable for round 6. And my variable for round 6 is the fact that Jabril Cox was available, and the Dallas Cowboys ended up taking him. And the Eagles wanted to once again grab another defensive tackle. So while I would have given this one probably a B+, I got to move this down to a B-. I have to move it down to a B- because the defensive tackle was unnecessary. You didn't need a defensive tackle right now. You didn't. You did not need a defensive tackle again. So yeah, that to me gets a B-. I'll give that a B-. Then you go on to round 7, and they finally after what? Let's go back up. Let's do a little simple math. After 5 rounds, you decide to finally draft a linebacker and Patrick Johnson. And from what I was looking at, Patrick Johnson seems to be another hidden gem. But the thing is, you see. I know they signed one of the linebackers from Minnesota. I believe his name is Eric Wilson. So you end up signing this, linebacker, and I don't know how long the deal is supposed to be for. But we'll see how that works out. But you see, the thing is, once again, you had an opportunity to get yourself, you know, another stud on the defense, another piece, another vital piece. You know, and like I said, Howie Roseman coming out and trying to justify it doesn't do anything for me. It does nothing for any of us. So, with that being said, after the culmination of the entire draft, from the stellar A+ that was the first round to the absolute D in the second round, towards a B minus, um and I don't know if I gave a C yet. I don't know if I gave a C yet, but I would have given a C to round 6 had it not been for the Jacoby Stevens. So that's probably why I gave it a B minus. But for all in all, I give the entire draft of the Philadelphia Eagles, I give it a B minus. I give it a B minus, and I think that's some people may be like, that's a little too low. But the Devontae Smith thing is not going to be enough to cancel out the fact that you literally reached for a center in the second round when you obviously have linebacking issues that need to be addressed, when you obviously have cornerback issues that need to be addressed. We can't do anything about, okay, there was nothing that could be done about there was nothing that could be done about the Carolina Panthers taking J.C. Horn. Okay, it is what it is. Even Caleb Farley, first round, it is what it is. But, all in all, I believe that you had, and it was enough talent out there. There's enough talent out there for you to go on ahead and take somebody else other than Landon Dickerson, an injury-prone lineman. As if the Eagles have not had enough injuries to the offensive line. With Lane Johnson going down, Jason Peters getting, beat up after so many years. Brandon Brooks was out for the whole year, and they were definitely missing him. And, having to rotate with that left guard and then Andre Dillard going down. So you already had a patched offensive line going into the first game of the season against Washington. So the way I see it, with the offensive line, a lot of that could have been solved differently. A lot of that could have been done way different. But it is what it is. With that being said, yeah, this whole draft gets a B minus, and I felt like, another thing the Eagles should have done, in my opinion, was draft another wide receiver, a big body wide receiver, but they ended up getting one as an undrafted free agent from Florida, and I hope to God it turns out well for the guy. I don't know his name yet. I gotta go back and look because Florida really ain't been hot since Urban Meyer left, or his last season in Florida. If you all recall watching college ball. But with that being said, that's going to do it for today's video. As far as the draft goes, I more than likely will be back later on tonight with some, with some updates or whatever, what have you. So, hey, signing off right now. Swoop and Score. I'll be back with more.